Google Glass, interesting case. And I love this case. I love this case more and more because it's a total failure. I love the failure case from very well-known company. You would consider a company like Google have a lot of resources and strategic thinkers that we would not run into a difficulty like a Google Glass. At the end of 2014, Google Glass have to terminate their initial project and then resume their research on Google Glass again. The reason I love the failure portion of the Google Glass is because that actually shows you more on strategic problems, on strategic decisions, and the challenge to strategic decisions than a normal successful story. And so this is a perfect setting for studying strategic decision. When you read this material, you will have a general sense that the choice could be very simple, because for those who read it already, we were talking about the three different alternatives. Should we identify a distributor for this new innovation called Google Glass? Should we go with traditional distributor? You probably remember the Italian company I showed you at the beginning of the class in one of the video clip, Luxottica. Luxottica actually is a dominating player in the world to distribute the glass for more than 500 million population. So that was, in this case, they were entertaining the idea whether they want to team up with this Italian company, which also manufacturing and distributing the glasses. That's one choice. The second choice, they were thinking, should they go totally internet to have the platform online to sell the Google Glass? The third one would be to find some kind of partners in between and team up to sell, to promote the Google Glass with a specialty partners in this business, in this industry, rather than go with the regular one like Luxottica. So from the beginning, it sounds like very simple, very straightforward. All you need to do is to flip to those financial reports at the end, do some calculation, and compare the cost and the benefit, and estimate the sales, and then you come up with a figure how much you can make by each choice, and then you pick based on cost and benefit analysis. And that's exactly what we did among those people in Google, and that's why they failed. They tried to sell this glass, Google Glass, as a consumer goods. It didn't work. It didn't work. It failed. So this is a good example and a quite interesting background for us to revisit the issue called decision case. Just to refresh your memory, we talked about the Harvard Business School case in 3 styles. What are the 3 styles, Mr. Lee? The first one you finish on Heineken will be problem case. The one we skipped is evaluation case. The third one is decision case. So most of the cases in Harvard Business School, we divided that into 3 categories. In essence, all these cases can be considered as a decision case. The problem case and evaluation case were just the stage 1, stage 2 preparation for a decision case. When you look at the decision case, mainly you were asked to identify an explicit decision out of case situation. Why that is a challenge? Well, you went through the problem case already. You knew that in this case situation, usually a lot of noise, over-information, disinformation. So therefore, screening through all those things and try to come up with a clean statement on the problem the company is facing is not an easy job. That's why we went through the problem case. exercise. After that, we are assuming that we know how to extract it out, this strategic problem, out of this messy situation, wicked problem, so to speak, and we can come up with a statement. This is the business situation requires our decision. And that's a decision case. That, in essence, that's a decision case. For carrying out the decision case, at least 3 activities you need to carry that out, you need to exercise in the process of conducting a decision case analysis. First, you need to understand the decision situation, which basically is the same process you went through for the problem case. That's how you understand the decision situation. Second, you need to know how to make a decision. What that means? Well, that means you need to come up with criteria of selection. And usually, if I'm teaching graduate school, I will have evaluation case, because that's the portion I teach them how to make a decision. So what kind of criteria we need to pick it up? For evaluating any options we're going to recommend. In this case, we just assume you went through those evaluation discussion already. You come up with criteria that's applicable to the options you're going to develop. For example, cost-benefit analysis, that's one of the criteria. Efficiency, another criteria. Effectiveness of communication with the customers, the third criteria. Or to test this new product to increase the social acceptance, that's fourth criteria. Or to work with partners co-evolve in this marketplace to create a new market. So you look at the criteria of market share and market domination and market growth. So those are all criteria. They are the candidate criteria for you to select from. Warning. You can open up considering all different kinds of criteria. Eventually, for your exercise, you want to nail that down to no more than 3 criteria. Because if you have too many criteria, you will have difficulty in selecting which option and recommending which option. So 2 or 3. If it's only 1 criteria, that's too thin and it doesn't make your analysis persuasive. 2 acceptable, 3 at the most. If you go more than 3, you will find it out you need to have 70 pages to finish your report, not 7 pages. That was space. So that's the suggestion you should keep in mind in terms of the second part of the activity, how to make a decision. How to make a decision, in essence, is to choose the appropriate evaluation criteria.
To identify a number of them, but focus on 2.
Exactly, exactly. So we will not go through the exercise on arguing why we pick these 2 or 3, because we were assuming you went through that already, which is a very difficult case type. So I skipped that for the undergraduate course.
So are you suggesting minimum 2?
Minimum 2, yes. Maximum 3.
Okay.
Yeah, because if it's 1, it's just,
Not very
too
strong.
thin. Yeah, not very strong, not too persuasive. The last one, you need to carry out a particular decision with action plan. That means you need to come up with options, and that's only half of the job. You have to make it very straightforward and say, I am recommending this one. That's your job for decision case analysis. You can't just push all those options to your boss, to your clients, to say, okay, I did the preliminary study for you, you make a decision. No. As a decision maker or assistant to decision maker, you need to make your standing clear. We recommend this one. And this is how we're going to carry out this particular recommendation in terms of action plan. For each decision case, the underlying activities are these 3. Now, allow me to go further as far as how can we write up the decision analysis report. for decision analysis report, you have to have the following components. First, you want to have the definition of the strategic problem that requires decision. So this is a part that asks you to exercise what you learned already from the problem case. You don't need to go through 5, 6 pages to elaborate, to analyze this is a problem and I'm going to nail this down and consider this as a problem. You just need to go straight forward to make that statement. So this portion of problem searching, of clarification of the wicked problem, have done already before you come to the writing of your strategic decision case report. You have to do that, otherwise you would not have a good decision in front of you. But you don't need to report that portion, because that's supposed to be done as you exercise the problem case. So 1 or 2 paragraphs, no more than 3. I would prefer to just have 1. You can state this decision situation clearly. You will find it out that's the most difficult part. That's the most difficult part, to clearly state this is the decision we're facing.
So basically,
Yes.
the introduction you want kind of like to state our decision.
Half page.
Yeah.
If you have more than 1 page, I knew you have been struggling, you're pushing the problem to me, so to speak. And then you come up with decision options. Decision options supposed to be what will be the possible alternatives that will allow us to solve this decision problem. That's decision options. And when you develop the decision options in your draft, coming up with the decision options as many as possible. Don't force yourself to just nail that down to 1 or 2. You need to have that variety. You need to open up your thinking on what kinds of options we can have to tackle, to deal with this problem in front of us.
So you could say, okay, here's my clear and concise
Mhm.
problem. Here's as many options as I can think.
Option 1, option 10, option 20.
In order to frame that thing, here's 3. Here's the 2 that suck. Here's the 1 that doesn't. And here's my
Yeah,
recommendation.
you jump 2 steps ahead.
Oh, sorry.
So once you have those options, you need to look at them to see, okay, what are those options? The components actually can be combined. And that's the process you solidify your option. Because the option might be just a simple idea, right? Now you combine them together and to see whether we can make one option solid. So that's the process number 1. Process number 2, you need to think about those options supposed to be exclusive. Option 1 and option 2 can be 80% similar. That's not the 2 options. That's 1 option. You need to work harder to make it within 1 option. In the process, and you gradually come up with 5 or 6 options, then you need to make a selection. Some of the options might be too far-fetched, and you need the money from the entire world to solve this problem. Man, that's not a good option to choose, because later, when you try to come up with an action plan, you will have feasibility problem. Yes?
Can you, well, just use an example when it comes to either options or criteria,
Mm-hmm.
just to substantiate put things in
Sure.
perspective?
I'll go through that portion. I have 17 slides. Yes, I will go through that portion. Good. So now I try just to lay out the general requirement on the structural components you need to have. And then I would recommend you to have no more than 4 options. Ideally, it will be 3. I make this mechanical, so you can use that as a cookie cutter for the future. Of course, in the real situation, when you were in your company, you certainly can twist that. But just for the exercise's sake, yeah, try to nail that down to 3 options, because next, you're going to also criticize the other options. You say, hey, you skipped the criteria. The criteria-wise supposed to be incorporated into your writing already. You might have one paragraph, very short paragraph, to come up to suggest that these are the criteria we're going to apply in evaluating those options. And I do not expect you to go extra miles to explain why you chose those criteria. Because we skipped that exercise on evaluation case. And you need to point it out the strengths and weakness, pros and cons of all different options. In arguing on the pros and cons of those options, you actually be intellectually rational as well as be intellectually fair to all the options. You can't just have a bias already to say, I'm going to choose one option anyway, so I'm going to backmark all the other options. That's not going to be persuasive. So you have to be intellectually critical, fair, and also unbiased. Give each option its due time and weight, and to tell the audience why this option worth to consider, why this option has the vulnerability you have to pay attention to, and the weakness you have to notice. And then you need to spend most of your energy on the option you're going to recommend, because you're going to provide the proofs of the remaining option. You're preparing the mindset for acceptance of your recommendation on particular option. You need to recommend that decision after your analysis of all options. Style-wise, some people recommend you have the recommendation right in front of your readers at the beginning. After you introduce the strategic problem, introduce the criteria you're going to use to evaluate the options, people suggest that you just tell your readers directly, this is my recommendation. And I think it's personal preferences. You can do either way. You can do the recommendation option at the beginning, in the first part of your writing, or you can wait until you go through all this exercise and recommend at the end. Or you can do in a combined way, in a sense that you tell them, this is what I'm going to recommend, and then at the end, you emphasize, you elaborate a little bit more why I recommend this option. Why you write in that style? Well, this is a policy paper. This is a paper is different from your research paper. And for policy paper, your purpose is to sell your idea as fast as possible, as clear as possible, as quick as possible. So policy paper allows you to have this format to communicate with your clients, with your colleague in the organization, and try to let them to see the value of your intellectual thoughts and take in your persuasion so you can organize the resources, solicit the resources within the organization for your strategic purpose. So it's different type of writing. This is policy style. And that's the general format. Keep in mind, you need to have an action plan to substantiate your recommended option. If you're recommending, let's have a blended learning, and then you come up with an action plan to see in short term, in mid-term, in long term, how we're going to do that. Who will be participating? What kind of resources that requires? What kind of performance we're expecting out of these things? And possible risks in the process, how we're going to deal with these kind of risks. So in your writing, I would expect a 1 page or 1.5 pages on the action plan. Because this is the time, in comparing to problem case analysis, at that moment I said half page. Just give me a rough idea on how you're going to pursue this problem. But here, you need to elaborate. You need to show that feasibility is there. If the feasibility is not there, the option you recommend doesn't fly. So that's why you want to elaborate on the action. In summary, this is a layout. This is the structural requirement for your writing. Could be the section subtitles for your writing. So you need to include those components in your analysis. Okay. Now, comes to Sam's question, how are we going to conduct this process? Right? So whatever you're going to read in the end, that's a clean cut of our thinking process and out of the drafting, etc. But if we want to engage from ground zero, and where should we start? Using the Google case as an example, and this is where you can start thinking about this decision case and try to come up with ideas of options and recommendations. You ask questions. You ask a question like, what is Google Glass? Was it for the face, for the luxury accessory, or is a functional device, or for something else? Out of the material, as well as your own understanding and the research, you may come up with all different answers. But this question allows you to explore the terrain of this problem situation, because this is the first type of activities you need to carry out. Understand the problem situation. You can ask a question like, who will wear it? You will find out if you read through the case. Those questions are very important. Right? If it's for consumers, looks like there might be no market at this moment. If it's for physicians, for surgeons, for firefighters, for the museum curators, right? There might be a tremendous market for Google Glass. See, that's why you want to ask a question like this, so allows you to understand the problem situation better. You can ask a question like, where is it functioned the best? For teachers, he or she might have the answer that, well, it functions the best when I'm lecturing, so I don't need to look at the slides. I can just look at Google Glass. I'm just reading the Google Glass. Right? And for students, their answer is that, well, maybe when we answer the question during our final exam. No, that's illegal. Right? So you can tell that why we ask a question like this. When will you must have it? Coming up with the consumption situations, when will you must have it? For example, if you are visiting Louvre and it's so crowded, or Summer Palace in Russia, it's so crowded, and you probably can spend a whole month in the museum and you still would not be able to cover all. Maybe wearing a Google Glass will tell you, hey, punch in your arts preferences, styles, if you like impressions or the other styles, and then they will recommend you a routing to go through those museums. You just need to watch and need to appreciate 20 paintings out of the half day you have in Paris. Those are my imagined. It's not, I'm not sure. I'm sure they're working on it, but I'm not sure the app is there already. But you can see that that's a part you must have it. Or if you were driving in a foreign country, and particularly you were not familiar with the road, that's a time you must have it. Or you were concerning about the police brutality, or the reverse case concerning about the accusation of police brutality, the cops may want to wear it to record the entire process, to say, hey, that's why I shot that guy. You knew what I mean, right? There are lots of controversies nowadays on those things. So that might be when you must have it. And how to excite, make the professional users getting excited. And put that enthusiasm into the process of consumption, because this is a new product. This is not established in the mindset in terms of value. Making them excited will help them to accept the new product and also tolerate some glitches in the process of using them. So those are the initial questions, and you may got a totally different answer, depends on who you are asking, who you were asking with. But this is the good beginning in terms of carrying out the first activity to know the decision problem situation. And then you try to nail that down based on your understanding by using those exploring questions, and you try to cluster those issues into certain category. Is this the problem regarding distribution channels? If there is a problem regarding distribution channels, that's very technical. So mini money, mini mo. Choose one that gives you highest return. Choose one that allows you to sell the most. Choose one that promises you to have the largest exposure to consumers. That will be easy. That will be easy as presented in this case, because that was written 2 years ago. But if you go further, particularly if you look into the hyperlink I provided to you, there are lots of articles on Google Glass right now. You actually do not need to go further than this hyperlink. You just need to read that hyperlink. You probably not have enough time to read all those articles in this hyperlink I provided you. And then you notice that, hey, this is more than just distribution channel. Initially, that relates to social acceptance, because people get mad when you wear Google Glass and they feel like their privacy were the intrusion into their privacy, so on and so forth. So the social norm still won't take that. It's like when camera come into place, when you take a picture of someone else, they feel like you suck all the spirit of my body by that little camera, right? But nowadays, who cares? The Google Glass is in that stage, because people consider that as very offensive. How to overcome that social acceptance? That's a question you need to think. There are many options. Educating the users, or just suits for those users who don't care, or have the option to turn on and off, or simply take away that photo-taking option. See, this go on and on. Or is that because the number of applications were not there? Because we only use this for general public's initial enthusiasm. It's novel, it's fun, it's interesting. Well, there's no utility. Why you want to have that? Well, just because that looks fancy, right? But if you ask further, for fun, beyond fun, what kind of utility you can generate out of this? Well, my teacher won't allow me to wear that during final exam, therefore there's no utility. So you need to think about that. Or is that because of the design? Design that too close to glass. You may want to come up with a new type of category. We don't call that glass anymore. Because once you call that Google Glass, everything associated with that concept called glass will be attached with this new device. So linguistic dimension of design may also need to be challenged and rethink about. I don't think the Google Glass team thought that much. They just came up with all those technical features, which is very novel, and then the market won't take them. Why market won't take them have multiple reasons, not just because people just feel like offended. By asking questions and then classify those answers you got into different groups, that allows you to see the decision problems start to emerge in front of you. That's the beauty of thinking. That's the way I always do my consulting work. People always ask me, where are your associates? I say, here, me. just myself, right? People always ask me, which consulting company you team up with, McKinsey or Boston? I said, no, Bow, Bow and Associates, right? People always say, where's your fancy projectors and PPT, etc.? I usually have a notebook, and the notebook I got from Japan is this size. I pull out of my pocket and start to jot the notes. And people often ask me, what will be your solution to our problem? How do I know? I have no clue, because I just came. Then why should we pay you that much? Because I'm good. Hold your payment until I give you my report, right?
What if after our analysis, we decide that they were actually trying to solve another problem by getting into this one?
As a matter of fact, you will see, we need to solve another problem. Because this problem is not solvable. The problem of finding distribution channel is a wrong problem. Get you nowhere, right? That's why studying the problem case, the skill you develop, very valuable. That's usually what I carry around with me when I get into the corporate situation. I'm acting as an anthropologist, cultural anthropologist, observing, sniffing, taking notes, and see how they look at eye to eye, because there are lots of information, important information, revealed outside in the context. We're dealing with human beings. We're not dealing with machines. Organization will consistent with human beings. If you want to recommend any strategy that flies, you have to know people there. And this is the process I'm sharing with you. That's my trade secret. You can carry on with you and to do your own consulting business. And if you need an associate, you know who to call. Now, let's continue on the decision case regarding Google. So further question you need to ask, you need to bring that back to the Google company. Before I go further, Sam, you have a question?
So if you go back to the
Sure.
last slide, just for examples of criteria,
Yes.
are these some criteria that you can use, or are these the options?
No, these are stimulations for you to think about the criteria. Okay. Right? For example, if you finally nail the problem down on distribution channel, you're going to look at the efficiency, naturally. But don't put the horse in front of the car. Don't come up with the criteria first. You say, I'm going to look for the problem based on this criteria. Then you reverse the order. So come up with the understanding first. And then using this classification of the problems to stimulate you to come up with the alternative criteria and then finally nail them to one.
So if you use social acceptance, you have to find the criteria within that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, for example, if you're using social acceptance, and not necessarily that's going to be related to how many Google Glass you can sell within quarter. There might be more on what are the social awareness you can raise to accept the Google Glass, right? So you can see the criteria can totally differ. Can I move on?
Absolutely, thank you.
Yeah. And the further questions you should ask, including what's the purpose for Google to develop Glass? Because this is not a toy Google invented and considered, hey, we're going to sell the toy in the toy arts and then we create a new revenue. No, they have a plan in their mind, right? So based on our understanding of Google, or should I say Alphabet, right? That's their new name. So we know this Google Glass will be related to search engine, information organization, information management, mutual communication of informations, and eventually will make the Google business ecology more valuable, right? Regardless, what will be the final status? What will be the final form? We knew for sure that's their strategic objective. So you can revise in the process as far as the design and technical function, etc. you knew whatever that comes up eventually has to plug into their business ecology to serve that purpose. So this helps you to increase your understanding on the problem situation. You go further, how to define the success of the initiatives. And then you will realize the success of the initiatives may not based solely, exclusively on the number of Google Glass users. May based on how much social acceptance, how this device will plug into the entire system of Google business ecology, how this Google Glass creates an advantage for Google in general. And then the product and the service stage of industrial life cycle, as the previous team also mentioned. We knew for sure this is at embryonic stage. So therefore, you apply everything on the embryonic stage to this product. You don't consider that as a commodity, because at different life cycle, they have different features as far as the product and service is considered. Applications, should we go for consumer applications? That's what they were doing now. Or should we go for enterprise applications? Last year when we discussed, my recommendation was to go for enterprise recommendations because the price and the utility ratio will be totally different. Think for a surgeon, we're operating on human body, and the Google Glass at least can remind the surgeon you are following the right procedure. That's life-saving, right? So $1,500, that's nothing. Think for fun, wearing that out on the street. $1,500, you're inviting a punch in your face, right? So it's a very different calculation. So that's why I was recommending last year when we were discussing the case, I went to the hyperlink I provided you in 2 slides earlier, and I found it out that's the direction they're going now. That's the direction they're going. And you go further, you try to identify the barriers for success based on your understanding of the problem situation. Is that functional barriers? Is that design barriers? Would that be the psychological barriers from the society? Or what would be the implication to value proposition? Is that because whatever we put into the Google Glass to the consumers, the value were not perceived and welcomed? Then use the previous questions to identify who would welcome the value from this new device. And you can certainly come up the ideas by using different theoretical framework, such as strategic diamond we introduced you before, and there were several other tools I will introduce you at the end of our discussion. So, just before we get to the definition of the strategic problem we're facing, we need to make decisions. Imagine what Google Glass could be used as far as the technical functions within the Google Glass device. What kind of business value to the consumers or to the enterprises? For example, RFID trigger, for example. Now for those, I'm going through this quickly because it's very technological. I'm just giving you the idea. If we have the RFID in the Google Glass, you pass through, when you were in Chinook, for example, they will send you the coupon because they will sense you were 2 meters away. Say, well, come in, within 2 minutes, we give you $30 deduction, right? This offer will expire in 5 minutes, right? So, in that sense, imagine the shopping mall has a bunch of Google Glass for rental, right? Of course, if you are operating the rental business there, you will sign the agreement with those companies. Whoever give me more commission, I'll put their app there first, right? So this is just one of the crazy ideas I came up with thinking about the Google Glass application. Or GPS triggered mapping. You don't need to punch in, etc. You just need to voice the Google Glass where I'm going, and then they are going to pick up all these GPS signals and tell you how to drive, how to zigzag around. If you were visiting Europe before, you knew how that's going to be useful, how valuable that could be, right? Think about the Venetia, every time I go there, I was there third time, I still get lost. Because all these zigzag little road, you never know how to get around. Until I figured out the way to get around. Here's my free tip. There are so many churches. You just look at the tower of the church and you get the direction. I never get lost in Venetia after I use that mapping system. Just look at church. So others could be also application trick, like a security emergency alarm, right? If you wear Google Glass to pass through the doors, you will be recognized and there's no problem if you don't, etc. So that could be an application for business usage. Superconscious. I mean, this is a little bit far-fetched but entertaining. Well, in the future, you don't need to have your brain anymore. Because Google Glass would be just an add-on brain. Why you need your brain? It's basically for memory, right? You just need to go to the shop. You say, well, I want to buy YJ Ball's brain. Here we go. $30, right? I want to buy Sam's brain. Well, that's going to be more expensive. $300, right? Okay. And then you put in the Google Glass, you walk around, and that might be speaking English, Chinese, Arabian, and you name it to you. And that tend to be your subconscious. You may have come up with the habit of collecting your past brains, right? Wherever you visited and whichever period of life you went through, and that could be in the drawer and in your memory system. You just plug it in and put it on. And it's thinking about 3D, thinking about the holodecks, and then that's totally going to be revisiting your past multiple times. Boy, I would love to have that.
They do that now, where they get you to write a note to yourself in the future. What's your advice to yourself in the future? With this, you could actually make that happen.
Exactly. That's my crazy idea when I was thinking about it, right? So then I can be forever young because I can create the holodecks, and I'm always young with the lovely people around me. I'm just using those entertaining ideas to stimulate your mind to say, wow, this case can be enlarged. And info body, that's again my crazy idea. Digital personality, stranger healing, matchmaking, because info body could be having certain kind of digital DNA in this Google glasses, and I'm shy, and Kevin is shy, but somehow we match with each other. We never had the courage to say hi to each other. Hey, our info body, we say hi to each other, right? So then, and Kevin follow me after class to go to the pub and have a drink, and I don't even ask why Kevin you were following me, because the info body, right? Isn't that cool, right? So that overcome the psychological issues or the psychological preferences. Sunday I probably want to turn in different colorful info body to say hi to everyone, right? Whoever going to buy me a drink, I'll just follow them, right? Monday to Friday I'll be serious, right? Nobody talk to my body, right? So on, so forth. Embedded bio ID. So you can have something there that's trusting, that's automatically verifiable. Right? I hope I have patent on my ideas, because I knew some ideas were there already, but some crazy ideas were not there, such as info body and superconscious. Particularly the info body. So you know that when we talk about the decision case in Google, we're trying to imagine what would be the solution to the problem. Now you notice the pattern. When we were imagining the problem, we were imagining the solution. So we were imagining the problem, we try to invent the solution. they invented a solution and they imagined the problem, they constantly dialogue with each other. That's another secret I share with you. Because when I do mission statement, when I do the corporate consulting, when I walk in, I actually have some idea already. Because it's constantly communicating with them. What I'm doing is that constantly adjust. What would be that idea? Would that be suitable for them? So at the end, I pull the ass out of my sleeve. They're all surprised. They say, wow, within 3 hours, you can come up with such a fancy statement. Come on, I work on that for 30 hours. So where that idea come from? Continuous dialogue between the imagined problem and invented solution. So when you think about the problem case and try to identify the decision issue in front of you, you also need to try to constantly imagine and inventing the solutions. Because eventually, if you come up with a decision, a challenge, there's no solution, that's not good. That's not good. It has to be feasible, has to be workable, actionable. Right? So that's a secret for you where the solution comes from. Imagine solutions such as if we're doing this for enterprise, and that could be education platform. We may put University of Lethbridge's all 4 years program in the Google Glass. You come in, you have a Google Glass. Then why should I come to the class? Well, fun to us, doing whatever we're doing. That's exactly the future of education. You don't need to come up to the class for the lecture anymore, because it's all there. Or game platform, or retail platform, as we were talking about. If you don't pay me commission, I'm going to exclude your shop. No recommendation for those who wear Google Glass. Or put a bad recommendation. Don't go to that shop. That's or medical platform for doctors, for physicians, for surgeons, and then they can be equipped, enabled to do the business as good as expert. Particularly for those medical students, newly minted medical doctors, they need these things. Or for museums, for hospitals. So those are these ideas, these possible solutions in your mind dangling around, and try to ask for what kind of decision we should have so we can have this kind of nice solution. It's never been sequential. It's never been linear, our thinking. It's always iterated, always dancing around. Only when we write it down, we make it linear, we make it sequential for the purpose of persuasion. But when that's in the mind, it's never been so. You need to learn the trick, otherwise you don't know how to write a linear sequential argument. Here comes the suggested decision issue I want you to consider when you conduct the analysis on the decision case. And you can concentrate on, well, you have 2 choices. One is an easy one. You say, okay, based on this case, we have to consider 3 options. Shall we go with the established retailer, such as Luxottica? Should we go online? Should we find a very technologically savvy partner to sell, to distribute the Google Glass? Assuming Google Glass is a mature, established product already. I'm fine with that. If you want to go just by that kind of analysis, it's totally acceptable, because that's going to be just for the learning of the format, how to do decision making. By that, you can learn the format with no problem. Or you can have second choice. That's what I'm recommending, which is harder. You have to go through all this thinking process as I was talking about, but you will address this decision challenge. This decision challenge says to identify distributors who can strategically promote specific user experiences and core event value distinctive applications. So that's the decision you're facing. You're not just trying to find someone to sell your product. You are trying to find a partner that will be collaborating with you to bring back the information on user experiences, promoting your application developed for these Google glasses, and create a business circle, business ecology to continuously improve the products, improve the usage of your Google Glass. So that's the partner you're looking for, and your alternative is supposed to be searching for which one would be suitable for us. The good news is that the case is 2 years ago, and in the link I provided to you is the most recent. You were actually thinking in the time, so as in 2 years ago, you have the benefit of looking into the future now. So whatever you recommend that was considering 2 years ago, now they have something happen exactly fall into the category I'm talking about now. We even have a partner there. I really, the link I provide you, you will find out that's exactly fit into the characteristic I'm suggesting here. But my purpose for you is to exercise, to know how to use the decision-making format. So if you want to benefit from the time traveling between 2 years ago and now, and pretending you don't know what's going on, and you wrote that 2 years ago, I'm totally fine with it. I'm totally fine with it. Because this is an exercise for using the tool, using this instrument. Okay. What I'm going to do, and then you come up with an action plan. I do not want to elaborate the action plan. That at least give you some white space to exercise your imagination. What I'm going to do in the following few minutes is to quickly show you 5 tools you can use to stimulate your ideas. And by using these instruments, not limits to this decision-making case, but also you can apply to your last project, how to revolutionize the higher education. Keep in mind, the last project aimed for fun, aimed for allowing to be crazy and imaginative, so you can use your imagination, basically tap into the brain of all your team members to come up with some crazy, interesting idea. So not supposed to be a burden for another project, but supposed to be an opportunity to enjoy the discussion with your team members. You can use the following 5 tools in the process of discussing which kind of higher education we can reinvent, as well as using those 5 instruments for this decision case analysis, exploration of the problem situation. First one, cross-Kaizen. That's a theory suggested by Jeffrey Moore 20 plus years ago. Basic idea was that for high-tech products and service, you always have a Kaizen to cross. You have to find out those enthusiastic users to be your partners, to be in your alliance. Because if you don't know how to do so, you're going to fall into the Kaizen disappear, regardless how advanced your technology, how fancy your technology is. And Google Glass fall into exactly this category. And why they failed? Because they were not following this law. If you want to make it successful in your strategic decision, then you should follow this law. So this is idea you can use for the discussion. The second one you're familiar with already, as far as the ocean, blue ocean strategy. And if you're going to apply that to consumer products, what kind of utility you can come up with? If you can't come up with very distinctive utility, and you knew your product is not going to fly, then you switch your mind to see who else I can sell this. The utility is going to be totally high and different, such as business. So you can use this framework to identify the consumers to be selective on which one I want to keep, which one I want to drop. And then you work down the different stages of consumption to see whether you can create more value-adding activities by designing your strategy accordingly. For example, why you want to sell Google Glass to people? Why can't you just rent to them? because their acceptance level will be very high. This is a new device. I don't know when that's going to go wrong. I don't want to handle the fixing, repairing portion. I don't know when this is going to expire. I want to have a new version. So you need taking care of those thoughts. You need to take away all those worries away from consumers. If you do rental, that problem is solved. Now, every one of us knew leasing, rental, hey, that's the most profitable deal, right? That's why you go to the car dealer, and they hate me when I put the cash on table, right? They want people to rent or lease, right? And in this situation, by applying blue ocean strategy, you can come up with those ideas and say, hey, we can bundle this into options or in your action plan. So this you can use in this situation. The third framework you can use is to use consumption chain analysis. Specifically for the idea I just mentioned, what are the barriers in front of them for them to not making decision? Who is making decision? Who is using? And why it's valuable to the decision maker? So you need to go through this process of consumption, and then you identify how to do the marketing to the precisely, concisely the right person, right time, right context. For example, I use this process we identified for the shoe company I consulted in China. We find out, hey, for girls, the decision maker were not girl, but the peers. The partner, the other girls say, wow, that's a nice shoe on your foot. Then that's a decision made already, right? So you go through this process, you find out who is the real decision maker and in which context. And that's the helpful, powerful tool you can use like this. The last two, and this one is to show you that for new product, you have to make people excited. So you need to identify the exciters and how to make value proposition based on exciters. You also need to identify the enrager. You make people angry, such as shooting picture on the street. People feel angry on that. You have to deal with that as well. So this framework allows you to try to avoid the vulnerability that will kill your winning application. Also try to identify the features that will make your new devices stand out distinctively. So this is what this framework for. The last one you're familiar with from our discussion in previous sessions. You can always look at the new market by going through these 4 different dimensions. Which function should we reduce? It might be too much there, as Dylan was talking about the exercise, the Fitbit things, and the Apple devices. Some of those functions you don't want to have. So what you can reduce, or what you can create, for example, again in Dylan's case, to create the community relational linkage, right? Or what can be raised, what kind of features that's preferred and that need to be raised, such as low price. That's a feature you want to make it very distinctive. You need to raise the conscience, raise the attention on that particular feature. Last one, what can be eliminated. So when you think about the Google class, you can also use this framework to stimulate your thinking to go through the entire process. So in summary, this Google Glass case is a decision case. For this decision case, you need to follow the template I provided to you. How to come up with the writing based on the template? Well, the questions I raised, the examples I provided will be a good starting point for you to organize your thinking. And that's basically what's about the decision case on Google. Any questions before we take a break? Okay, wonderful. That means I either explained that perfectly well or totally wrong, so we don't get any questions.